Hey guys, it's Tara Marie, and I'm right here in the Hangar Studios in New York City. I'm with Dr. Millie Lytle. We're about to do an episode of my podcast. Dr. Millie, I've known for years. I've known you for years, and my listeners love you. Today, we're talking about a diet you created called the Food for Mood diet.
That's right. Yes, I'm excited to speak about it.
And you created this for patients you had that were dealing with anxiety and depression and different mood disorders, right?
Yes, I was asked by the psychotherapist that I work with and the psychiatrist that I work with to develop a diet that was going to help them lose weight.
Yeah.
But as I got into the research, I realized that they needed more than a diet just to lose weight. They really needed a diet that was going to help them with their mood.
Yeah.
So, and I found there was so much overlapping material and mechanisms of action behind why somebody who eats poorly suffers from anxiety and depression that I kind of put it all together.
And I'm excited for this show, and I told you this, and I never hide anything from my listeners. I have eaten really poorly in my life, not now, but I have a history of it. And I also have a history of anxiety and depression. And I have seen anecdotally the correlation. And so I'm really excited about this show. You guys, I think you're going to love this. And it's going to make you think. And I also, you know what else I want to talk to you about? I want to talk about how the ketogenic diet can play a role in this, and also intermittent fasting, because that's something that you don't talk about in the material, and that's something I've started doing, and I'd love your opinion about that.
Yeah, the development of the diet kind of preceded the ketogenic diet, but there's an interesting overlap and also some separate mechanisms of action also for why the keto is important in mood disorders.
Yeah, brain health, because anything that's good for your brain is really good for your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're ready to start. You guys, we've got my director here, Rich. What are you looking at, Rich?
I'm just filled with depression and anxiety.
Yeah. No, Rich, no, can I say
no,
this?
I'll be honest
Yeah,
with you, this is like so
germane. It's germane to what's happening
but
now.
also very I almost feel like duh, like how come someone didn't think of that sooner, because it is kind of, not to minimize what you do, but it's very common sense.
Yeah.
Very of course,
Yeah. And
a bunch of junk.
You've also struggled with depression. We don't mind saying that, right? Do you mind saying?
Why you got to talk about me?
Do I? No,
That's not about me.
But
yes, absolutely.
And
family members as well.
Yeah.
And I see it more and more nowadays. And the generation coming up, kids with the phones born with these phones. So there's so much anxiety. Generation coming up too, so they could learn from this.
And what's interesting is, and we'll get into this in the show. What's interesting is you could almost do a graph and watch how anxiety and depression, as our food supply, we've gotten more with processed food, high fructose corn syrup. Let's save it. Yeah, you could almost do a graph. So you guys, we're gonna start now. We'll go ahead and start now. This is going to be a brilliant show. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. I'm Tara Marie, and I'm a fitness expert, personal trainer, and motivational strategist. Optimal health is achieved when you're balanced mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, and spiritually. My goal is to bring you information that will help you be the best version of you. Well, hello and welcome to Tara Marie Live, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Tara Marie Segundo, and I'm a fitness expert, a personal trainer, and a motivational strategist, and we're here broadcasting from the Hangar Studios in New York City. Now, Tara Marie Live is a podcast about mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual health. And I learned a long time ago when I was working full-time as a personal trainer that all of these parts of who we are have to be nourished and they have to be tended to in order to have optimal health. Today, we're talking about a topic that resonates with me because I've seen it play out in my own life. And that is how nutrition relates to our mental and emotional well-being. If you've ever wondered whether diet has a correlation with things like anxiety, depression, panic attacks, mood swings, and other mental health issues, the answer is yes. The human body is just a big chemistry lab. And what you eat and what you drink affects your biochemistry, and things like blood sugar fluctuations and brain chemistry have a direct impact on how you feel and how you think and how you act. The nutrients that your body gets determine how your body and your mind operate. In fact, mood disorders are among the fastest rising health conditions across the world, and it's been estimated that by the year 2020, which is very soon, depression will rank as second in disease burden worldwide and the first in developed countries. That's in 2 years. That will be depression. As the rate of mental illness increases, it's absolutely critical to address the physiological connection between diet and mood disorders and explore the metabolic causes as well. Well, thankfully, my guest today agrees, and she's an expert in this area. Welcome, Dr. Millie Lytle. She's a licensed naturopathic doctor specializing in helping women with mind, body, soul medicine for chronic disease reversal using naturopathic medicine, integrative medicine, and custom-made nutrition programs, and also what she calls body, mind, soul exploration. Dr. Millie is the founder of Nat Med Coach, which offers a weekly virtual health club as well as a concierge program with integrative teams of licensed naturopathic doctors, certified functional health coaches, and other types of other health coaches as well, because I looked on the page. Today we're talking about her Food for Mood diet, which she developed as nutritional counseling treatment for patients with depression who are also at risk for metabolic disorders. So welcome, Dr. Millie.
Thank you so much, Tara. Happy to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you back. Regular listeners will know you because the last time you were here, it was July of 2017, and we talked about stress and how it affects hormones.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fascinating show. I forgot to look it up. I usually do that, but if you go to my website, all episodes of Tamari Live are posted there, and it was July of 2017, and it was called literally How Stress Affects Hormones with Dr. Millie Lytle. So I would encourage you to listen to that show. That's a fascinating show. Today, what we're talking about is a particular passion of yours, and that is where nutrition intersects with mood disorders. And before the show started, before we started rolling, we were talking about how you came up with this, because you've practiced as a naturopathic physician for years now.
I have. I started in 2003 in Toronto, and probably the third clinic that I was in and doing a residency was with a psychiatrist who was integrative. He was interested he did a lot of research in his clinic, and he had a team of psychotherapists and psychologists, and he brought me in and wanted me, and I was being supervised in psychodynamic psychotherapy and CBT, so I was learning how to do psychotherapy, and I was assessing his clients for vitamin and nutrition and diet. He wanted me to develop a diet that would help with weight gain.
Help with weight gain or loss?
Yeah, help with the weight gain that's secondary to pharmaceutical medication.
Oh, so may I understand?
Mm-hmm.
So people were taking pharmaceuticals and they were losing weight.
Gaining weight.
Oh, gaining weight.
Yeah, So help them with the weight gain.
Help them with weight gain. So you want to help with weight. Okay, understood.
Yes. Either way, you could say it, but it's true. Yeah, so we wanted to help to see if we could help them lose weight, because secondary to serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the psychotherapeutic medications that they were being given, they were gaining weight. And so once I started interviewing these patients, and they tended to blame their mood disorders. So they would tend to blame their depression on why they were overweight or why they had a bad diet. But what I realized was, once I started looking into the research, was, wow, they are particularly poor eaters, are particularly inconsistent with their eating habits, are up at night, binge at night, kind of all across the board. Their eating patterns were off, what I would consider to be a normal healthy diet, and they weren't really following any dietary regime. And so I started looking at their blood sugar numbers and whether or not they had controlled blood sugar, and lo and behold, they don't. And of course, also psychotherapeutic medication also causes rises in blood sugar. So there was all this corresponding material that would affect their metabolism. And so I started looking into the research, so that I developed in the end what was not only a weight loss diet, but actually a diet that would help them improve their mood as a result of eating better food.
Because obviously the human body loves homeostasis.
Yes.
The human body just loves sameness. Homeostasis means just everything's just kind of even keel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said before on the show, I don't hide anything from my listeners. I used to be a disaster case when it came to eating and drinking. I used to live on beer, diet soda, and junk food. And then I wondered why I had, up and down moods, bad skin, trouble concentrating. I have a history of struggling with anxiety and depression. And it was because I didn't know, now I can put the pieces together in hindsight, but every time my blood sugar would go up and down and everything was going up and down, the body hates that. The body just wants to be calm. And so you can't have habits that are all over the place and wonder why your body isn't stable, right?
Yes, exactly. And so once I started looking at, okay, what are the symptoms of high blood sugar, hyperglycemia, and what are the symptoms of hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, I started realizing a lot of these symptoms overlap with symptoms that we would consider mood disorder symptoms.
Okay.
So that was the first piece of the puzzle. It's like, okay, so I don't know if these patients are understanding where their anxiety begins and where their hunger begins and how these two are merging. So, for instance, symptoms of hyperglycemia are difficult concentrating, headaches, blurred vision, fatigue. So if somebody has high blood sugar and they're really just having a hyperglycemic attack, they've eaten too many refined carbohydrates, they might feel like they're having an anxiety attack, or they might feel like they are depressed that day and want to go home, depending on how their system responds. Likewise, if they haven't eaten in a while, say they haven't eaten all day long, they're at work, they're hypoglycemic. Hypoglycemia responds as fatigue and nausea and increased thirst and irritability and, that hangry feeling.
Shaky,
yeah, you get shaky. And so that can feel like a panic attack. And so these simple kind of metabolic regulations or dysregulations rather might be being exhibited every time somebody thinks that they're having anxiety and or depression.
Right. And you say that the Food for Mood diet, I love that name, by the way, is about eating for your brain, not your stomach. So that's what you mean by this, because you talk in the material that, again, in the long term, it affects brain chemistry, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And so when we sit down to eat, the reason I say eat for your brain, not for your stomach, is because if you start to pay attention to the effect that food has on your body, pretty much as soon as you put it in your mouth, right? If you're starving, if you're hypoglycemic, you haven't eaten, and then you have a tendency to want to eat more fast carbs quickly, eat a whole lot of calories all at once, then you are going to feel the effects of that sugar on your brain. You're going to get that relief feeling, not because you're full right away, because it takes 20 minutes for the satiety signals to kick in if your leptin's even working. But it only takes under 10 minutes for your blood sugar to rise and then to satisfy the brain. Because the brain is actually the only organ of the body that gets its energy from glucose directly. Every other cell of the body gets its energy from stored carbohydrates or stored amino acids, proteins. So the brain is the first one to feel it when you eat.
Right.
It's the most responsive organ to food. And if your body is responsive to blood sugar, then it's going to respond in under 10 minutes. So that's the first symptom is, how does food make you feel? Does it make you feel what you're eating? Does it make you feel relieved? Does it make you feel good? And so that's why I say eat for your brain, not for your stomach. And then there's that second meaning, because what we eat on a daily basis also creates a pattern of how our brain chemistry fluctuates, how we create our neurotransmitters, which is, I'm not sure that the population necessarily know that we are creating our neurotransmitters every day by what we eat.
Well, let's explain that, because again, so when we think about this topic, we want to think about it in two ways. In the short term, meaning what I eat right now is going to affect me right now.
Yes.
But also in the long term, over a period of time, you're either building or destroying neurotransmitters in your brain, things like serotonin, things like dopamine. These are the neurotransmitters that have a lot to do with a depressed state, anxiety, low mood.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't realize that serotonin receptors, the majority of them are actually in our intestine.
In the gut.
They're in our gut. So the majority of your serotonin is actually being made during the digestive process, and serotonin receptors are being stimulated at that time in order for your then to cross the blood-brain barrier via hormonal the shuttling across the blood-brain barrier, so that then your brain can utilize that serotonin.
Well, you know what else this reminds me of? And Rich knows this. I recently had to have oral surgery, and I was on 20 days of antibiotics. 20 days of antibiotics. 3 times a day, amoxicillin 500. That's a lot of antibiotics for one person. And it messed up my it messed up my intestinal, and I started to go into a depression. I started to sink into a depression, and it wasn't just because of circumstantial, circumstances of my life. It was because I was literally messed up in my body, because most of the serotonin is produced in the gut. So if that's wiped out, what's left?
Yeah, then there's no actual way for the body to stimulate serotonin in the brain. It happens in the gut. So if that's, and then often, so if there's constipation, if there's diarrhea, if there's a whole lot of different functional problems that are happening in the body, as well as antibiotic use, then that whole system is going to be dampened.
Horrible.
And you're not going to be able to create the serotonin that you just naturally can, because it's a normal physiological process.
Yeah.
People think we're born with the brain chemistry or what have you, but yeah, we're born with the brain chemistry, but we're constantly creating it every day also.
Right. We're co-creating our happiness or our depression every day of our life. For example, you say that a diet lacking in protein causes fatigue, lightheadedness, brain fog, persistent hunger, and that you've seen that can be concomitant with anxiety and depression. It's because isn't protein one of the building blocks of these neurotransmitters that we talked about?
Yeah.
Dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it starts with the gut. So when we eat proteins, our body, our enzymes break down those proteins in the stomach, and then they break them down into amino acids. And amino acids, especially, we've all heard of tryptophan, is one of the main precursors for serotonin. And so and this is not my opinion. This is research shows that people who eat less protein during the day have more likely to have these kind of depressive, lightheaded, spacey symptoms because of a lack of tryptophan, as well as potentially other factors.
And so you also say that research shows a direct link between high sugar consumption, which I used to call Tuesday. I mean, like I used to live on sugar, beer, and diet soda in college. Did anybody else do that? No, is it just me? Did you eat poorly? Or
I gave myself bulimia by cutting out fat. So I have.
Okay, so you had problems too.
Yeah, I decided to cut out fat because I was 19 or 20 years old. I was watching Susan Powter. Do you remember her? She's a fitness guru.
Yeah, the blonde lady.
Yes, she was very lean, very, very lean. She had that shock blonde, white hair. And she used to say, if you don't eat fat, you won't get fat. And I was always thin and everything during my childhood and very sporty. But then once I got to college, freshman 15, hormones, bad skin also. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, it's the fat that I'm eating. It must be that. So I cut out fat. And then what happened? Then I started getting carbohydrate addictions. I started thinking about food all day long, couldn't stop. And all I was eating, you have to think, okay, what is food made up of? It's only made up of either protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Right. That's all it can be made up of. And then smaller components, vitamins, minerals, and then fiber is a type of carb. Or it could be chemicals. But if you cut out one entire macronutrient group, fat, then your food is better be protein. Otherwise, it's going to be all carb. Or, I mean, if you're super smart, you could have a lot of fiber. But I was not. I was eating Rice Krispies. I was eating flatbreads. I was eating bagels. Unbuttered and skim milk, and everything I was eating was carbs. And then I started gaining weight, and then I started restricting because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining weight. I have such, you don't realize it when you're going through it. I didn't put the pieces together at the time that it was because I cut out fat,
but also
I was getting so many carbohydrate cravings.
We didn't know what we didn't know. Like,
no.
And I say this all the time. I was born in 1965, and that was back in the day. I was always raised with the idea you need to worry about the calories because if you just all you have to do is think about calories. That's what I was taught. All you have to do is think about calories. Yeah. So in college, we'd go out for frozen yogurt, call it dinner, have a Diet Coke with it, then wonder why we couldn't concentrate to, I mean, literally every picture of me in college is holding one of those red cups with beer in it.
Yeah.
Like what was
so you're drinking all your calories?
I was either drinking beer, drinking diet soda, or eating stuff out of the vending machine. In my college dorm cafeteria, they had one of those ice cream things like at Dairy Queen. I lived on soft ice cream. I mean, it was a joke. Yeah. And all we did was we made sure that we didn't have too many calories. But then my skin was horrible. I had trouble concentrating. I struggled with anxiety, depression. We just didn't connect. We just didn't connect the dots.
Yeah. We were talking before the show started that, is this nutrition stuff just common sense? Well, if there's common sense as a baseline to begin with, then it might be common sense. But for so many people, they were not raised with any kind of sensical tradition as to how you approach food, or whether or not even food has any impact on how you feel during the day. Or no, if cancer patients can eat whatever they want, then certainly people with mood and depressive disorders can eat whatever they want. And no, it doesn't matter, coffee, soda, what have you. So.
Well, and we were talking about before the show, there seems to be I can only speak for this country, but there seems to, worldwide, based on the statistic that I said, there seems to be an uptick in anxiety disorders, mood disorders, depression, even trickling down into young people. I mean, look around, look at the newspaper, look at the shootings, something's very wrong. And I was saying before the show, you could almost draw two bar graphs and put them side by side. As our food supply has gotten screwed up with processed food, high fructose corn syrup, chemicals that you can't even pronounce and such, the levels of anxiety, depression, mood disorders, any mental illness that you can name has gone up at the same rate. And there's got to be a correlation. We're poisoning ourselves.
Oh, yeah. There's public health studies that looked at 6 different nations with rising blood glucose levels in the population, and showed that among those 6 nations, also with rising blood glucose levels, was higher incidence of depression. And so that's a public health study. It's not a clinical trial. But when we look at trends and what's going on in the world, and even developing countries, that are receiving aid food and things like that, because they're the staples of their diet. They're not even Western, nation, so they don't have all the degree of fast food that we have, but they still end up with processed food, processed carbohydrates that drives up blood sugar, that also drives up depression. Because we also think, okay, if we're eating, it's also what we're not eating. If we're eating all of this junk food, then we're not eating a whole section of the grocery store that we really should be. That's, where all the nutrients come from.
I like what she just said. It's not what we're eating. It's also what we're not eating. Because Rich and I just shot, we haven't released it yet. We shot a special with one of my obese clients. And we are a nation of overfed, undernourished people.
Right.
We are fat, but we're underfed. We're starving ourselves. We're starving ourselves.
Our brains are starving.
We're starving our brains. And we're creating anxiety and all kinds of issues because we're not feeding our brains. That is so scary. But I can't point fingers, because that used to be me. I used to live like that. Just out of, for me, it was just pure ignorance. Honest to God, it was pure ignorance.
Well, I think that's usually what it is. I mean, people can put blinders on and not really take an interest in that for whatever reason, but they're preoccupied. But I don't think people are deliberately doing it to themselves. I mean, I do think that's why once we go through these situations ourselves, I mean, this is how I got into naturopathic medicine. Is because
you got sick.
Yeah, I got sick, and actually I had an accident where I broke my jaw in 3 places, and I forgot that I had bulimia. Because
what do you mean, babe?
I had an accident, so I fell down the stairs. I broke my jaw in 3 places, and I totally forgot that I had bulimia. That's how I stopped being bulimic.
Wait, how did you forget? Because
I just didn't remember. I just started.
Oh, you mean you had amnesia?
Just injured?
Like you had
but I was just injured. I was just focusing on, I mean, I couldn't even move my mouth for 3 weeks, and I was just kind of trying to heal myself, and I just totally forgot that I had been restricting fat and only eating carbs and binging and purging before I went to college. I completely forgot what my habits were. Fortunately, wasn't that ingrained. Yeah. But then once I got to naturopathic college and I started learning about nutritional biochemistry and the impact of nutrients and on our health, and how the brain needs fat in order to function, and then I started realizing, oh, okay. And then when I got into this position at the psychiatric clinic and was able to kind of do this, I really felt very attached to it, because I had this history. I thought, oh, yeah, I did that to myself, too.
Right.
I can relate with that.
Right.
I think so many people can relate.
Right. No judgment. The way I got out of it was I got real sick. I worked my way into a corner. I worked my way into a hole. And I created this cascade of events that created major chronic fatigue syndrome. I just wore my body down with bad food, but just everything you could do. And I got real sick. And it almost took me out. And I just decided I've got to fix this. And I decided you've got to just look at the basics. What are you eating? What are you drinking? What air are you breathing? how are you sleeping? Like literally. So yeah, a lot of us get into this because we've been on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't really rely on the media because the media is just feeding you one fad diet to the next. And as we move through, one thing that I've realized from practicing, 15 years now, and is that when there's one popular diet, it kind of pervades through the culture, and then the food manufacturings and marketing get a hold of that, kind of the worst parts of that fad. The majority of the population, the masses, end up eating that, and primarily eating that, and then they end up with either deficiencies, or they end up, 10 years later, the burden of what they'd been eating for the 10 years prior. And then there's a new fad diet to kind of correct that. So that's kind of sweeps through our culture over decades, or it looks like it's decades. 10 years it's calorie free, 10 years it's low fat or no fat, 10 years it's low carb, no carb, 10 years it's high fat, right? So this is not the answer to create a sweeping extreme diet just to respond to the metabolic harm we've done to ourselves 10 years prior. You know what I mean? Because it just creates a new problem.
Right.
And it will create a new problem if we continue to eat like that. So that's why I kind of suggested that we, and I'm glad that you wanted to speak about keto today, because that's kind of where we are right now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? With high therapeutic value, because of where we are right now, in that people have been eating so many processed carbohydrates.
We all have now we all have diabetes.
Right.
But to link that, you say that research shows a direct link between high sugar consumption in the daily diet and diabetes and mood disorders due to a negative feedback cascade in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis. Yeah. Can you explain what that is to everybody and why this phenomenon occurs?
Yes. So I could say that being hungry is stressful. So whether there are other stressors in one's life, which of course there are, waking up and going to work is stressful, fighting traffic is stressful, and being hungry contributes to stress. And so every time we experience stress, even if it's good stress, but hunger is bad stress, then there's an impact on our endocrine system. So the organs that produce our hormones starts in the brain and the hypothalamus, stimulates then the adrenal glands, the hypothalamus, pituitary, they produce hormones that stimulate cortisol eventually from the adrenal glands. Cortisol is the stress hormone that impacts us the most. Cortisol increases our blood sugar. So even if you are hungry and having hypoglycemia, the body will stimulate the adrenal glands to produce cortisol, so then you can secrete sugar.
Okay.
So
because can we just say this? The body's always trying to protect you.
Yes.
So if you have low blood sugar, your adrenals are going to try to protect you.
Yes.
By pumping out the cortisol, which will raise, because your body, that's the beauty of the body. It's always going to protect you.
Right.
Try to protect you.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes the body, if you're not helping the body do what it needs to do, then it looks like the body is going against what your efforts are. And so then not only if the blood sugar goes up, then what happens is that then the pancreas has to produce insulin, which is another hormone that goes in and collects the blood sugar, and sugar can't get stored as sugar, it has to get stored as fat. So it gets converted and then it gets stored as fat, generally belly fat, when it has to do with insulin and cortisol. And then our central nervous system gets dampened. So we've got this stressful situation. We might be experiencing anxiety. It might have started with hunger. It could also start with something like eating too much or, any kind of stressor. But blood sugar goes up. Our body tries to go and collect it. It secretes insulin. So then if it's doing that a lot, then we'll have high insulin, have high blood sugar, high insulin. Then we'll have belly fat. And then what happens is that the central nervous system gets dampened. So once we start having this belly fat issue, our leptin signals are affected. So when we eat food, then our body can no longer tell when we're full anymore.
Explain what leptin is. It's the hormone.
Leptin is a hormone that's released in the small intestines every time we eat, and it sends a signal to our brain, as long as it's functioning, that we're full. It takes 20 minutes. So if you are very hungry and you are eating very fast, you could eat 3 plates of food in 20 minutes before you realize you're full. And so this is also a consequence of waiting too long to eat between meals. I often say to my patients, how much white rice can you eat? a lot, right? You can eat a lot of white rice, a lot. Like,
I can, yeah.
Yeah, everybody can. It's very easy to eat. How much brown rice can you eat?
I can eat a lot.
You can? Okay. Most people can eat less brown rice. It's got a lot more fiber. You have to chew it a lot more. It's boring. Doesn't taste as good, which is a blessing actually, because foods that are kind of boring and bland slow us down, slow our eating habits down, and also has fiber, so it increases leptin signaling. Whereas carbohydrates, fast carbohydrates like white rice, noodles, bread, our leptin doesn't necessarily notice that we're eating that as fast because it doesn't have the nutrient components that stimulate leptin.
Got it. So you end up eating more and more and more.
More and more and more. And then if that's your regular diet, then your leptin just kind of gets insensitive. And that along with like dysfunction of the microbiota. So your microbiome is not good. You don't have enough good bacteria. And then central nervous system gets dampened. It reduces your energy expenditure, so it lowers your metabolism, slows your metabolism. You do not feel like exercising, and you are depressed.
And I've always heard that leptin resistance correlates with insulin resistance. So if you're insulin resistant, you likely are leptin resistant, meaning you're not getting the signals to your brain that you're full.
Right.
And I know people, haven't you? I know people who say, I know obese people who say to me, I'm just always hungry. And I feel so bad for them because I'm never hungry, like never. And I feel so sorry for them because that's hard to deal with. That's hard to deal with physiologic hunger that's constant. But I feel like they ate their way to that problem.
Yeah, it's training. You train yourself to get there. You might not know it, but that's what you're training for. I like to say, are you training for chronic disease? Or are you training for longevity, right? So whatever we're doing on a daily basis is not just it's not just a one-off, right? It's an actual habit. And then that's going to set our metabolism and set this whole cascade that I mentioned, from the stress and the sugar and the insulin and the central nervous system to the depression. And then all the emotions that go along with having done that to yourself, or the guilt, and then you have to deal with that, which then that's not necessarily related to the food itself anymore. Although if you haven't eaten vegetables lately, then certainly the protective nutrients are not there to help you get out of it.
Yeah. And you say that because diseases like diabetes and mental illness do develop over time, the signs, symptoms, and metabolic damage can go on for literally years or even like a decade before transitioning into a diagnosis at the doctor. What symptoms should people be looking for to know whether their diet is negatively impacting their overall mental health?
So, do you feel satisfied when you eat? How long does it take for you to get hungry again? So you want to notice, so it's that blood sugar reaction. Are you having a negative blood sugar response? Like, are you getting agitated, hyper, or lethargic when you eat? So are you getting symptoms of either hyperglycemic or hypoglycemic? It's not normal for us to...
Let's just explain. Hypoglycemia is low blood sugar.
Right.
Like we're... Hyperglycemia, I think, is a little harder to tell if you have it.
Yeah, right. It can be agitation, but it can also be fatigue. People respond differently, whereas hypoglycemia can also cause you to be like that hangry feeling, right? Like that irritability feeling. So people do have different degrees of what the symptoms are, but in either case, that's a blood sugar irregularity.
Okay.
So if you're feeling either agitated or fatigued after you eat, that is not a normal blood sugar symptom. If you're getting shaky before meals, like if you're waiting, and so this isn't even as soon as, you haven't put food in your mouth recently, and you're getting shaky or tired, or you feel like snapping at your boss or your coworker or your child or your spouse, and this is kind of a regular occurrence, or does this only happen if you skip breakfast or skip lunch, So I ask people to tune in, okay, I'm feeling this way, my mental health is in this state right now. When's the last time I ate?
Okay.
And what did I eat? And did it make me feel good?
Okay.
And just doing that kind of check can really make a huge difference into understanding where you are in terms of your blood sugar health.
I have one for you.
Yeah.
I have a relative who I won't name names because I have to see them. When I was on Sirius XM, I used to name names. Rich, can you believe when I was on Sirius XM, I used to go, oh, well, my aunt so-and-so. I think
you did that when I was on a show.
I did. I would name names, and then no one was nice to me. Then everybody got mad at me. I'm like, what did I do? It's just people. It's just listener. I mean, I just don't, but I have a relative, and she not only doesn't eat well, but she will drink like a soda. I don't want to say the name of it. She'll drink a soda. And like so she won't
like
she doesn't eat well, right? And so she goes on like these, she goes on the bitch she'll go on bitchy rants, but then she'll wash down the bitchiness with a big soda. And then it lasts about 10 minutes and then it gets worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Yeah, because caffeine also agitates that cortisol reaction. So if you're drinking sugar and you're drinking caffeine, then it's stressful, right? So it's also stimulating your cortisol, which is why people are drinking the caffeine in the first place, is because their cortisol might not be high enough. They might not be feeling alert enough, right?
Yeah.
Their body's fatigued. They might not be able to produce enough cortisol naturally, or they might just be used to that adrenaline junkie high feeling, that everybody in New York seems to function on just fine. It's like, no, this is my normal state. I'm just going to be like this all day and drink 5 coffees and then go to the gym and like do spin or something and just like maintain this really high energy, adrenaline, and never give your body a break, So if you're functioning like that, it's also very difficult to check in with yourself. But we have to slow down. You have to see what speed you're on. Are you on fast speed or are you on slow speed? Because no matter where people are at different places. You have to slow down and always think about your mood in terms of what you ate.
Okay, so again, look at your mood, and when you're feeling an off mood, or even if you're going through like a depression, think about things like, well, in the short term, when did I last eat? What did I last eat? How did I feel?
How did I feel?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, we get used to this relying on our food to satisfy our tastes. Was it tasty? Did it satisfy me in that moment, right? But to be honest, food only starts working once you've swallowed it, and then is when the real work begins. How is that food working for you? And we really have to ask ourselves, that's a really good question to ask yourself of your food. You actually should expect your food to help you feel better, not just to give you some cheap thrill. It's not a Tinder hit, right? It's like you want it to be a good relationship.
I work, as a personal trainer, I've worked with a lot of morbidly obese people. And a lot of these people, and I no judgment, because this used to be me. I wasn't morbidly obese, but this was how I treated food. They look to food as like a form of entertainment, and food is not there to entertain you. Now that I don't have dysfunctional eating patterns, I only look to food to nourish my cells. That's all I'm thinking about, is because now I'm in my 50s. I'm 53 years old, so I'm always thinking about cell turnover rate and how am I going to look, and I'm concerned about how I'm going to look, and I know that nutrition is the way to look good. And but a lot of people use food as entertainment almost, and that's where we've gone off the rails, I think. Because things that are like salmon and broccoli aren't as entertaining as chips and dips and things like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, definitely, people are definitely using food as a lover, as a mother, as a blanket, as a pet, as a TV. I mean, people are and food should be. Food should be involved in community and family and celebration. Food is celebratory, but we have to also take ourselves. We have to sit our 4-year-old self down and say, okay, how would you treat your 4-year-old self? Would you tell your 4-year-old self that they can eat this all day?
Yeah.
So you have to really also consider how to nurture yourself properly, not just with food. Yeah. We want to nourish ourselves with food, and we want to nurture ourselves with positive relationships and dealing with our emotions and asking ourselves, okay, why am I going to the freezer for the ice cream every time I get sad?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of work to be done also if you want to take it to that emotional place, which, I think that's often involved in anxiety and depression too, is our dissatisfaction with things in our life.
Yeah. And how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Now, I want to hear your thoughts on the ketogenic diet. Because I before I even heard about the ketogenic diet, I realized that was kind of what I was doing. I didn't know there was it was called something. I just realized anecdotally I don't do well with a lot of carbohydrates in the form of grains. I just don't. And so I would always get my carbohydrates from vegetable sources, non-starchy vegetables, a lot of greens and such. Then all of a sudden the ketogenic diet came out, and They're talking about how it's very healing for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I want your thoughts on it, because I know that we should tell people you had a Food for Mood book, a Food for Mood diet book. It sold out. And you decided that before you do a reprint, you're going to do an update on it, because when you first printed it, the ketogenic diet wasn't out there.
Exactly. And it was way back in 2007 that I wrote this diet. So I'm kind of behind in my updates. It's like on my long to-do list. But this has remotivated me to get those edits out, because certainly having good quality fats is part of the Food for Mood diet, but taking it to the extent that we are using fat as another source of fuel. So the brain generally prefers to use sugar, as I mentioned. Okay. The brain is the only organ that gets its energy from direct glucose. And does that mean that it likes a can of soda and a Twinkie? No, it actually likes a slow, steady, sustained release of carbohydrates from complex meals. And as you digest this food over 2 and 3 hours, slowly the sugar will be released, and then it will not cause blood sugar spikes. So this is the benefit of having proteins and fats and fiber as part of our meals, because it slows down the release of sugar into the bloodstream so that we never get these spikes. And then the brain still has this steady glucose source that it likes to use as fuel that keeps us energized and focused and thinking and, whatever we're doing. And so once the brain gets to the point where it can no longer use glucose, so if people's blood sugar is unstable, they have diabetes, they're calling Alzheimer's, let's just jump to it, right? Alzheimer's is diabetes type 3, right? Why? Because the brain is damaged. Brain is made up of fats, and it should be very heavy and soft and fatty. That's what the brain is made of. And if the brain gets damaged by having high circulating blood sugar for a long period of time, the sugar itself is toxic. The reason for why the body wants to lower sugar is because circulating sugar in the blood at high concentrations is toxic. We know what the effects of this are. It's neuropathy, it's blindness, diabetic retinopathy, and then it's Alzheimer's, which are these neurofibrillary tangles. So I don't mean to get too scientific, but this destruction that sugar has on different organs, especially soft organs, nerves, eyes, brain.
You know what, I was always
taught, the body needs to get rid of that sugar, right? So
Can I interrupt? I was always taught that blood sugar cascading through the veins, it's like glass scraping through the veins. They're literally it's like glass. And that's why it damages the vascular system, because it's just like scraping through the inner lining of your veins.
It creates advanced glycation entities. So these entities called age, we can think of it that way, because it does speed up aging incredibly. So it creates these advanced glycation entities that become sticky and plaque-like and adhere these soft structures that should be very soft and loose and fatty and heavy, and it creates physical damage. And so anybody who has had high blood sugar and or high insulin levels, who has, either metabolic syndrome, even they don't even have to be diabetic. And let's just consider this is at least 30% of our population who have diabetes, and then probably another 25% who have irregular blood sugar instabilities. So this could be about 50% of our population right now, and increasing, who have damage in their bodies because of blood sugar. And when this damage happens, they actually can't use slow levels of sugar that have been released into the brain as energy sources anymore. That whole system gets damaged. And then...
Is it irreparable?
No, we don't like to say it's irreparable, but I mean, it's not a good situation.
Okay.
But the earlier you catch it, the more irreparable it is. I mean,
okay.
And the more repairable it is. And also, of course, including fat soluble nutrients and omega-3 fatty acids and phosphatidylcholine and these nutrients, these brain nutrients, we can feed on these, as well as eat something like a ketogenic diet in order to not only, nourish the cells again with the good fats, but also as a secondary source of fuel, the brain can use keto bodies in order to function when it cannot use sugar. So this is for why the ketogenic diet has been shown to be helpful for epilepsy and neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's and in some cases MS. And also they're looking at it for various kinds of dementia, right? Because it helps with it helps when there's conditions of physical brain damage. So these are damage of the brain. I don't really mean an accident or injury, but it could be that also. But these chronic neurodegenerative diseases that are associated with high sugar, the ketosis, the ketones can actually act as a source of fuel so that the brain can think, so that the brain can function, which is absolutely necessary. I mean, if the brain's not fed properly, you can't focus on a task at hand. It needs. And so this is why the keto diet is very helpful for people who have blood sugar disorders. Now, there are other people like yourself, whether it's blood type or whether it's genotyping or nutrigenomics, there are people who tolerate high fat diet more so than grains. Some people don't tolerate grains. And so you also have to, this is where individuality comes in. I'm a person who tolerates grains very well. Not everybody does.
Can I ask, what's your ethnicity? I'm just curious because...
Mostly Northwestern European, but some South European.
Because I think it goes, I always look at someone's ethnicity, because like certain populations tolerate milk better than others. Certain populations, like you said, you tolerate grains well. I just don't.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with ethnicity.
Yeah. And so, if you want to, it could be ethnicity. So what your family history has eaten. Could be your blood type, that's kind of made a stab. And there's the genotype diet, which is essentially a blood type, but kind of looking further into what the effects on genes by the foods are, but by Diadamo, same author. So I'm. Do you know what your blood type is? I'm type A.
I think I'm AB. I'm AB.
Okay. So AB is kind of like the weirder meats. I know that about it. I don't know everything about the blood type.
The
diet.
Weirder meats. What do you mean?
Yeah, like lamb. Like it eats lamb. It doesn't eat beef, and it tolerates I
don't do that. I eat a cow. I eat half a cow a week. I eat a lot of beef. I just have to have a high fat diet. Or I will slink into clinical depression very quickly.
Okay.
And by high fat, that's why I was asking you about the ketogenic diet. For me, I eat a lot of avocados. I eat 1 or 2 avocados a day. Not like I've heard nutritionists talk about like a half of an avocado. I eat an avocado or 2 every day. I eat red, really high quality red meat, chicken, fish, eggs. Organic olive oil, organic coconut oil, nuts, seeds, everything, fat.
Yeah, so it's possible that this has always been you, or it's possible that your body has a hard time using sugar as fuel, or doesn't use it evenly as fuel, and so you feel better eating a high-fat diet and you can digest it. So there has to do with, how does it feel on your brain, and also can you digest it?
Yeah.
So this is your homework, this is what diet is most suitable for you. What diet do you feel best on? And people do try out different diets to see how they feel. You put people on elimination diets, eliminating grains, see how you feel if you're eating higher fat. But it doesn't mean just eating the way you ate without the grains. It means you have to eat nourishing food that's also going to help you with your your brain and your physical health.
So you're not opposed to the ketogenic diet? Do you have patients who use it?
I think that there, as I mentioned, so this is what I'm saying. There's like 50% of the population that probably does better on the keto diet now because they essentially have brain damage because of high sugar. Yeah. And then there's probably a fraction of society who just generally do better on fats, you having ketones as fats. But as well as I do, not everybody's doing the ketogenic diet the same, right? Like the ketogenic diet is about fat proportions to carbohydrate ratios, and then you can break down if it's medium chain triglyceride or long chain triglyceride, for instance. But if you're just eating, regular bacon and like all day long and sour cream then I don't think that that's a healthy diet, right? You want to include leafy green vegetables, low starch vegetables, as much as your diet allows, and so you have to make it a good quality, high nutrient density diet.
Yeah, that's how I get all my carbs is veggies.
Yeah, and so this is a big kind of this is where people do it wrong, if you will, is that they'll just focus on I can have 50% of my or 75% of my diet from fat and then a quarter from carbs, and then they'll choose bad food. Bad quality food. Bad quality food is always bad quality food. You're not going to get good brain health necessarily just from eating high fat if the food is actually making you sick.
I saw a post on social media. It was on my Twitter feed. It was by Dr. Lori Shemek. I don't know if you follow her on Twitter.
No,
She's a nutritionist, but she said like a lot of people, like they'll take a piece of bread and slap half a stick of butter on it and call it keto.
Right.
Because no, that's not.
Yeah, it's not keto.
You can't take a piece of bread and slap half a stick of butter. No, you got no. It's
I mean, if you're actually doing keto, you actually do measure your ketone bodies to make sure you're in ketosis, right? And so there's different proportions, ratios as to whether you do keto with, if you're trying to lose weight with calorie restriction. And of course, the purpose of keto is to crash your insulin and your blood sugar levels, as well as your insulin growth factor 1. So there's other hormones that the ketogenic diet essentially will force down, which also increases your risk factor or decreases your risk factor for cancer and things like that. And so similar with intermittent fasting.
I wanted to ask you about that because I started doing it years ago. One of my callers, this was back when I was on Sirius XM, one of my callers asked me about it. And she said, that she's fasting 16 hours a day, eating for 8. For me, I thought it sounded like a horror show because I'm an eater. I eat. I eat a lot, and I like to eat. And I thought at the time I remember thinking I couldn't go 16. I couldn't imagine it. And then one day I thought I'd try it because I started to look into the health benefits, the collateral benefits of intermittent fasting. And I decided to try it. And it was only hard like the first couple days. And then my body kind of got in a routine. And now I fast 16, 18 hours a day. I only eat 6 or 8 hours a day. I fast for 16 or 17. And it's not hard at all. I'm never hungry. My energy's good. I actually feel better when I'm fasting than when I start eating. My body feels good. What do you think about it?
I mean, I think, again, similar, the benefits of the intermittent fasting are to quickly lower your insulin, lower your blood sugar, lower your insulin growth factor. So it puts you in a state of fasting for, all of those hours that you're not eating so that you can reduce all of these hormones that are essentially making us sick. So it depends on where we are, So if somebody does have metabolic syndrome, does have pre-diabetes, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going straight to that diet if somebody has diabetes, because you have to be careful about how you're regulating your blood sugar, especially if you're not on medication, because you do need to eat regularly in order to get, stable blood sugar levels. But you could certainly work with a practitioner. The other thing that's happening is that you're kind of retraining your body to stop using sugar as its primary fuel source to using fat as its fuel source.
I lost weight. Yeah. I lost fat, and I was still eating the same amount. I just was fasting for those hours. I didn't change the amount of food. I want to be very clear about that. I never changed the amount of food. It's just I lost a little too much weight, and so I had to put some back on because I didn't like being too little.
Yeah. So I think that these diets are very evidence-based. They do serve this purpose that's happened culturally right now, this kind of response where so many people have poorly regulated blood sugar levels, and they are a way to help that. Whether this diet is going to be good for the population long term, I don't necessarily think so after we've corrected these kind of, but this is what we're working with right now. So,
bottom line, are you against it? Because I know that.
No, I'm not against it. No, I think it serves a function. I mean, I think that there are two different diets, but the intermittent fasting, as long as my concern is that you're eating a good quality diet.
Okay.
And then depending on what your health goals are and depending on how you, feel, some people feel better eating more longer hours for the day, and some people feel better eating shorter. Some people feel better not eating, and so that's also something to consider. There's all these individual differences.
Yeah.
So no, I'm supporting it as long as the micronutrients and the macronutrients that we need in order to make good health is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody is different, because one of my sister-in-laws, whose name I won't say, I'm not going to say it. I won't say it because I have to see her. So one of my sister-in-laws, she likes to eat within 30 minutes of getting up, or she starts to get the shakes.
Yeah.
That's just how she is. Within half an hour, she needs to eat.
Yeah. I mean, that is the way to set metabolism, to eat within an hour of waking in the morning, to eat something with protein, something with fiber. Definitely, that's what I consider on the Food for Mood diet to be the most ideal.
I saw that.
Yeah. So, but keep in mind, if you're doing keto, or if you're doing, not if you're doing keto, if you're doing intermittent fasting and you're not starting to eat until 1 p.m., that's working for you, fine. Like if it's working for you, then that's fine. You don't have to do all of the points on the Food for Mood diet in order to have good mental health using food.
And most of us, talking about nutrients, most of us, you say, don't get enough of the key nutrients, even if we think we're eating right, just because the food supply has been, I mean, come on, look at the food supply. Look at what you get in a regular grocery store. A regular grocery store, it's been processed to death. Most of the nutrients are removed. What do you suggest to your patients we do to ensure that we're getting the most nutrients for our dollar out of the food we buy?
I mean, I'm a proponent of organic food, organic vegetables, especially if you can afford them, especially the Dirty Dozen. So, I mean, no matter what you do with your diet, if you eat enough vegetables, you will likely be okay. It really, for the most part, comes down to vegetable consumption, because really that's where we're getting the micronutrients. That's where the phytochemicals are coming from that they're not measuring in studies. Is there more vitamin C or in organic food or non-organic food? It's not even about that. It's about these phytochemicals that are anti-cancer and support our brain health and our mood that we really need to increase. And also the fiber. Fiber is so important. And so as long as we're eating enough vegetables, so the minimum would be 5.
5 what? 5?
5 servings of vegetables per day. So the minimum. And even if you're eating 5, the studies have shown that we'd have to eat 13 servings of vegetables in order to be getting the micronutrients that we need on a daily basis from our food. And so then this is why, some people supplement, or they supplement with greens to make sure that they're getting all those vitamins and minerals that they need.
And even with so what if someone, because this is where I get worried, if someone can't afford to buy organic, because it's expensive if you have a family.
Yes.
I worry about, I won't, there's certain things, if it's not organic, I won't eat. I just won't.
Yeah.
I won't put it in my mouth.
So every year the Environmental Working Group puts out the list of the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So the Dirty Dozen would be the most contaminated fruits and vegetables that are found to have upwards of 13 and 15 pesticides at the top of the list. Strawberries, grapes, apples, celery. It's always the same ones in different orders. They're heavily sprayed, heavily contaminated. Those are the most important in order to avoid having as many pesticides in your diet. And of course, pesticides are also sequestering some of your nutrients. The more pesticides you eat, the more nutrients you need to eat. And so it's worth it in some cases to either avoid those or have them organic.
Okay.
You can also grow them if you're, depending on what climate you're in. Home gardening, home farming is a really great and cost-effective way to get more food into your life. You can even have herb garden on your shelf. So there are lots of cost-effective ways in order to get fresh fruits and vegetables into your life. Bottom line, it's more important to consume them than to avoid them for whatever reason, even if it's organic or not organic.
Okay.
However, you can also look at, so in addition to the Dirty Dozen, which are the more important ones to eat organic, the Clean 15 are the less important ones to eat organic. And so are generally fine conventionally, and so those tends to be broccoli and so all the cruciferous vegetables, as well as fruits and vegetables with tougher skins, grapefruits and oranges, and we peel off bananas.
Yeah.
We peel off their skin. Their skins are not as porous.
That's what I do. I buy on the Clean 15 list.
Avocados, for instance.
Yeah, I don't waste my money.
Yeah.
I just don't waste my money. Because on average, I've noticed, at least up here in New York, the head of lettuce, an organic head of lettuce up at Fairway is $2.50, and it's a tiny little head. It's half as much if you buy conventional. So it's about twice as much. It's about twice as expensive.
Yeah. And I mean, you can also reduce, so if you look at fruits and vegetable stickers, they start with a 9, they're organic. They start with a 4, they're conventional.
Yeah.
They start with an 8, they're GMO. So you can look at your produce to kind of eyeball that. You don't have to shop at the expensive stores either in order to get organic food. You can find them in your little mom and pop stores. Generally, even your corner store will have, a small selection of either food that's in season locally, like foods that are in season right now are cheaper, are abundant, are grown where you're living, so they haven't had to be transported or shipped across borders. So that's another way to make sure that you're getting cheaper produce that costs less, but you're still having the nutrient density in your diet.
I want to emphasize what you said. If you see a sticker, because every avocado, cucumber, everything, if it starts with a 9, it's fine. 9 is fine.
Yeah.
9 is fine. 9's organic. If it starts with a 4, that's a bore. That's conventional.
Yeah. So it's been sprayed with pesticides, but so you just make the choice. So just remember,
9 is fine, 4 is a bore. 8 means GMO, which I throw into the garbage category. 8 is not great. Okay.
Definitely not.
I want to go over some of the tips. You have 13 tips to improve your mood for the Food for Mood diet.
Yeah.
I want to run through these. The first thing you say, we've already discussed, you say pay attention to your hunger in relation to your mood. Start to pay attention.
Yes.
We've got to,
Yeah, even, journaling costs nothing. If you write down everything that you eat and how you feel, this is a way that you don't have to, you won't forget, right? If you've written it down. It's a great way to keep track of when you're having panic, when you're having depression episodes, and time it according to what you've eaten that day, how you're feeling, if it's a good day, if it's a bad day. Everybody, if they eat McDonald's, is going to feel like crap. I'm sorry to say that, but that's true. And just very bluntly, if you eat, we were talking about, frozen Pillsbury. I don't know if I'm allowed to say names.
Say it.
Yeah, like Pillsbury dough or, any kind of like Twinkie or cookies.
Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah. If you're eating those kind of things for breakfast or Pop-Tarts for breakfast, you're not going to feel good. It's just not a good start to the day. And this does sound like it's common sense, and it is common sense, but it actually impacts the mood more than anything else.
I used to eat Pop-Tarts. Do you remember Pop-Tarts? Can we say Pop-Tarts? I don't know if we can say.
We're saying a lot of brands.
Oh,
we're saying a lot of brands. I'm sorry if I'm
toaster pastries.
Oh,
I used to eat. So like I would have like chocolate milk and a toaster pastry for breakfast. And then I would wonder why I was in a bad mood. So and then I would have a Diet Coke after. So you also say, and this is something Rich mentioned. This is something you said before dehydration is debilitating.
Yeah.
Dehydration is debilitating. Rich is dehydrated. Talk about it. Talk about that.
Yeah. So for one thing, it's water, drinking your 7 to 8 glasses of water. It's really a half your body weight in ounces of water per day.
I drink my body weight. Is that bad?
I mean, you're slight, but if you weigh a lot, you don't want to drink your body weight in ounces of water because you could actually waterlog. If you're very slight, then it's probably not going to be a big deal.
I do a gallon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you do want to hydrate because hydration allows the blood to circulate our nutrients up to the brain and also to the genitals where you also want blood, so that we want our blood flowing in all these places.
There's a reason to drink, Rich. Yeah. There's a reason to drink.
When we're dehydrated, we're not only dehydrated in water, also we're dehydrated in electrolytes. So magnesium and potassium and calcium, and these are relaxing nutrients that can relieve from anxiety. So hydration is not just about water, but it's also about how our body regulates water and fluids. So if if you feel like every time you drink water, you have to pee just as much, it's because you're not getting enough of the key electrolytes in your body. So you want to make sure you're eating lots of green leafy vegetables for that reason as well.
And the electrolytes are magnesium, potassium,
calcium.
Magnesium, potassium, and calcium. Yeah. You mentioned that a study from France showed that people who drink more quantities of water throughout the day have improved mood, focus, and energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I found that too.
Because of increased blood flow, increased circulation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I find that just anecdotally, because I have to sit at my desk a lot. I don't know if you do. Does your job involve sitting at my desk a lot? My life is just a constant drink. I just get up and I leave the water in the kitchen. So every 10 minutes or so, I just get up and I take a sip of water.
Yeah. You always want to have a receptacle, carrying a water bottle with you. Get into the habit of that. I trained myself. Honestly, I like to say I Pavlov dogged myself. Every time I'm telling a patient to drink water, I take water myself. And even right now, I'm so trained, I'm going to drink water because I've said that.
The comment you made about, because again, I weigh like 125, 128, and I drink a gallon of water a day. I feel like, because again, like one of my clients, he's almost 500 pounds. I feel like the bigger your body, the more water you need. So he can't drink what I drink and because he weighs 5 times what I do.
It's half your body weight in ounces of water. So if he weighs 500, he would aim for 250 ounces of water,
which is 2 gallons.
Yes,
2 gallons. Yeah, because a gallon is 128 ounces.
Right. So, it is more. However, big people, they do need more water because we want to be flushing, out our cells and everything. But we all still have the same organ. They only have 2 kidneys. They have the same amount of blood as, everybody has almost,
he has the same amount of blood as a little 100-pound girl?
No, but there's not that much variation in the amount of blood that a 6-foot man has than a 5-foot woman. It's, it's hundreds.
I'm talking body weight though. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying that no matter, we need extra water, but we don't need that much extra water, right? We don't need to multiply it, magnify it.
Okay, because
But that's the logarithm that you use, is half of your body weight in ounces of water. And if you're a small person drinking the same, then that's probably okay. But you don't want to be a 500-pound person drinking 500 ounces of water per day.
Yeah. He's an extreme case.
You don't want to waterlog
but
yourself.
Yeah.
That's
I'm also just referring to people like guys at the gym. I know guys at the gym, 210, 225. They can't eat and drink the way I do. They just can't do it.
But that is a good point, because that's another reason for why people need to drink more water. So you need to drink more water if you caffeinate. You need to drink more water if you drink alcohol, and you need to drink more water if you work out and sweat.
Out,
so you do need to replenish not only your water, but also your electrolytes if you're doing those things, because when you sweat, you're also sweating out electrolytes.
Calcium, potassium, magnesium. Yeah. Calcium, potassium, magnesium. You say one of your things, again, I don't do this, eat breakfast within an hour of waking. You say it sets the metabolism.
Yes. So this is a way to stabilize your blood sugar, so that the studies show that a group of people who ate breakfast and then took the subway to work averted panic attacks, whereas people who had not eaten breakfast were twice as likely to get a panic attack on the way to work. There's been studies showing that road rage happens in people who are hungry. And this is also true for children. Children who are hungry cannot focus, and
school,
and this is why there's so many lunch programs. So, this not focusing is an aspect of our mental health. It's if we're used to feeling like, if you're hungry and you're stressing on the brain and you can't focus and you can't function, and you think that that's ADD, or that could just get diagnosed as ADD, or that could get diagnosed as OCD in a patient as they grow older. And then we also attach ourselves to these diagnoses that we have. And it could just be simple biochemistry, nutritional biochemistry. So we really have to think about that and give it the respect that it deserves.
But again, to emphasize, you're cool for those of us who do intermittent fasting. If we're happy, if we seem to be doing well, you're cool with that.
Yeah, if you're doing well, you can focus, and you're mentally strong, and it's good.
You're
fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. You say mitigate stress by eating every 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah. So again, this is to protect your blood sugar, and you might be eating more than that if you're actually eating all your calories within an 8-hour period of time. But you definitely want to eat regularly. You don't want to let 6 and 8 hours go by and allow yourself to go into this hypoglycemic stress state. Therefore, it'll cause you to eat more calories all at once, then to experience rebound hyperglycemia. So then your moods are just fluctuating all over the place every time you eat or don't eat. So you really want to be proactive. We need to eat every day. Why are we so disorganized with our food intake? It's like, I know I need to eat breakfast tomorrow. I know I need to eat lunch tomorrow. I know I need to eat dinner tomorrow. Have something prepared for yourself so that you don't have to get yourself into a state of emergency, because if you go longer than 4 or 5 hours without eating, that's exactly what you're going to be happening. You're going to be in crisis. If I have not eaten all day long and I go into a grocery store, I'm going to open up a bag of chips and cookies in the aisle and eat them, because my brain is absolutely starving.
Right.
And, we are a convenience store nation. We allow ourselves no food in the house, or, maybe we're drinking beer or chips or something, and then we're surprised by 4 p.m. we haven't eaten all day, that we're absolutely starving, and then we need to order Chinese takeout.
You know what I use for snacks, and Rich knows this, I keep in my house, and I understand that this may not work for some people for a variety of reasons, but I buy in bulk. I go to the bulk section at Fairway up here on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. People know Whole Foods, usually nationwide. You can buy bulk, like I buy organic raw almonds, organic raw Brazil nuts, organic raw cashews, organic raw walnuts, organic raw, pistachios. I buy that, and I keep, if I'm leaving the house, I'll take a Ziploc of organic raw nuts with me just so it doesn't require refrigeration. You throw them in a Ziploc baggie.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect snack because it's a perfect ratio. Most nuts, I mean, cashews are higher in carbohydrates, macadamia nuts are lower, that kind of thing. But they have fat and carbs and protein. It's like the perfect little snack.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you keep staples, it's about what staples you keep at your house.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared that you are going to be hungry tomorrow morning when you wake up, and you want to have something that you can eat. So whether it's an apple, whether it's a yogurt, whether it's a handful of nuts. And I recommend it not be salted nuts. It be either raw nuts or
Organic,
lightly toasted nuts and organic, so that you're not going to want to binge and overeat. I mean, these foods are delicious on their own. And if you are a person who has been used to eating a lot of processed food and really relying on the flavor of excessive salt, excessive sugar, just know that your palate can change as you start reducing that food in your diet. You will start, as you reduce that processed food in your diet, your taste buds will bounce back, and you will start to be able to taste the sweetness and the salt of whole unprocessed foods as time goes on. And this is a very interesting process to take yourself through, interesting food journey, which not only has rewards in that it makes you feel healthier, more stable, fewer anxiety attacks, but also you will have a new relationship with food. So it's
how long does it take for
the
palate to change? How long does it?
It can only take a few months. Once people stop using processed foods, and they all of a sudden like, oh, I never liked bitter chocolate before, but now I really like it. Or I never tasted how sweet the sweet potato was. And this is things that people have epiphanies about. And it's like, great when somebody gets to that point, because it's not, changing your diet is not about being flogged to, it's about being beaten down and shamed in order to change your diet. Changing your diet is a gradual, very personal process where you notice yourself feeling so much better, and you're being rewarded. You're being rewarded by how much better you feel, how much better your health is.
Yeah.
Weight loss is part of that, but that's actually likely the last thing to happen. That the weight loss is, our body holds on to weight until it knows it's safe to let go of it. So really we want our metabolism to be good and secure, that we're not having anxiety attacks every day because we've been starving ourselves for the first 8 hours of the day, if they're not on a good intermittent fasting regime. But so you want to work on that aspect of food, is allowing food to nourish you.
And I want to corroborate what you said. I used to live on sugar for decades of my life. And now I don't put sugar in my mouth. And to me, organic raw cashews are so sweet. They're so, like, when I'm craving sugar, people always say, what do you do like if you get a sugar craving? It's no problem. If I get a sugar craving, I have a handful of organic raw cashews. They taste like pure cane sugar to me. Yeah. Because they're so sweet compared to a Brazil nut.
Yeah. And changing, that's another thing too, because people think like, oh, I'm going to be forced to eat food that I hate. And no, it's not that at all. Really, you're forming a variety of a palate so that you're enjoying new foods, and you just continue to try foods and introduce them into your life. I mean, this is more to the art of changing your diet. You just continue to try new foods and notice how yourself adjusts and likes new foods, and don't block yourself from making those changes thinking that you're never going to like anything, or that this is a lifelong punishment, because it's not at all. It's about finding what works for you, what tastes good to you.
You say avoid all carb meals. And
yes.
I want you to highlight this, because I have a relative, I won't say her name. I'm not going to say her name because it's a name that I said on Sirius XM and I got yelled at.
Yeah.
She has, okay,
I probably know her name.
No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to get, okay.
So we'd have to go back.
She has type 2 diabetes, and I almost had a heart attack. One day I went over to her house, and she was so proud of herself. She said to me, she was proud because she didn't eat much for lunch that day.
Right.
And she said, guess what I had for lunch? When she told me, I almost had a heart attack. She had a cup of plain pasta. She has type 2 diabetes. That was lunch. I would have rather that she had no pasta and 3 big meatballs. But she doesn't. And I've tried to explain. My relatives don't listen to me. I don't know how your relatives are, but
they listen.
My relatives do not listen to anything I say. But this is a person who has type 2 diabetes, and she was proud of herself because for lunch, all she had was a plain cup of pasta. Explain why that is like.
Yeah. So when we have kind of unchallenged carbohydrates, we're just going to get these blood sugar spikes. So this is the mentality that we're living in, that fat is bad, that, oh, just a plain, it's very innocent, it's a saltine, it's a bagel, it's a roll, it's a very innocent food, when really these are the most toxic foods for the majority of the American public right now, because these are the foods that have no challenge to lower blood sugar. So when you only eat pasta, you only eat a bagel, you only eat white rice without any sauce on it, without any cheese on it, without any meat on it, without any beans on it.
Oil.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's no other fat, there's no other food group other than just the carbohydrate, then it's going to cause an automatic spike in your blood sugar. And so then it's going to take you from like a hypoglycemic state, as I mentioned, to a stress state where your blood sugar gets increased, and then your insulin gets kicked in, and then you go into this fat storage mode, and then it dampens your leptin, your central nervous system, you get depressed. And this can all happen very quickly. And we can be experiencing this on a daily basis. These swings, these emotional or mood swings from being hungry and anxious and hangry to somehow, elated, which lasts for a very short period of time, to feeling depressed again. Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of taking ourselves through this with reward withdrawal, treating food as a drug. And this is why they say that sugar is as addictive as cocaine, mm-hmm. because it takes our mind through this, our dopamine kicks in, and it takes our body through this reward situation where we're eating to get a hit, we're eating to get a fix, instead of eating to be nourished. And so we have to really train ourselves out of that thinking that low fat is good.
I don't get it.
Pile on the fat. You want to pile if you're going to eat pasta, which, we recommend you don't eat that much pasta, that you eat whole grains, because whole grains are what have been shown to increase serotonin levels. And it is true that carbohydrates do they do make us happy. Carbs do make us happy. There is a biochemical reaction that happens in the body. It is this dopamine center. But complex carbohydrates also make us happy. They might make us slightly less happy, but that's actually better in the long term, because then we don't suffer the lows. We don't suffer the highs, so we don't suffer the lows. And there's always lows if we're getting extreme highs. And so carbohydrates can be depressant if we eat them without any other buffer.
Yeah, like if I eat a rice cake, like I eat grains on lifting days. Like if I do a heavy lift, I'll have some grains, but I'll have a rice cake slathered with almond butter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. People think, oh, I can't have Parmesan cheese on my red sauce and pasta. It's like, yes, you should have it. You should have an egg on there and have some, meat on there, or at least. I mean, if I'm going to make pasta, I also make a side of lentils so that I get some protein. And if you're not going to eat dairy, so it depends on what your diet is, but you can always increase protein in your diet. You sprinkle some hemp seeds on it, and fat.
You say.
Fat really slows down the digestion, so you're not getting the blood sugar spikes. Protein does it too, fiber does it too, but fat will do it quickest.
Right, but when my relative did that, I almost died.
Yeah,
because we're dealing with a type 2 diabetic, so this is not a joke.
That's probably how she got diabetes.
Well, that's how she. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you say, remember this: fiber is filling, sugar is killing.
Exactly. So it's just that. So when we're allowing these blood sugar spikes to happen, then we're going to be taken on this crazy mental journey, which is anxiety and then rebound depression. And whereas if we eat fiber along with it, so if we, the difference between a white rice and a brown rice, it's not that. The difference between white rice and brown rice is that the bran layer has been removed in white rice. So that. It's not that they're, it's not like a brown chicken and a white chicken. It's like it's the bran layer has been removed, and that bran layer is the fiber, and it allows the whole digestive process to slow down. And there's no calories in fiber, and it makes us full. It allows us to stay full for a much longer period of time as the blood sugar slowly increases so that our brain can use it. So fiber is 0 calories. It's very filling. It absorbs water. It also has extra benefits because it scrapes the side of our intestine and our colon and takes the stool out, which is also good for our mental health, because then we're eliminating waste products. If we're constipated, then we're recirculating toxins that are garbage, essentially, that we do not want garbage circulating through our bloodstream, because it just makes us feel bad, let alone the physical discomfort. So fiber helps with all of that. I mean, it's really... one of the best foods, and fiber is found in any plants as long as they haven't been processed.
But again, it slows down. Like that's the difference between having a glass of apple juice or eating an organic whole apple.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're having an apple, and people are so confused about fruits. Fruits are not bad. Fruits are great because fruits, if you're drinking the juice, you're drinking the juice of several apples. How many apples did it take to make that juice? So then you're getting the calories of all of those apples and you're getting none of the fiber. So it's just immediately spiking your blood sugar. Whereas if you're eating the apple, then you've only got the sugar from one apple. And it's filling because it's got all the fiber and the pulp in there. So it's then slowing down the release of the sugar into your bloodstream, exactly like you said. So you're not going to get these highs and lows. It's not going to cause anxiety and depression.
You know what I do for sugar? I try to stick to the, for fruit rather, excuse me. I try to stick to the low sugar fruits and I won't have more than 2 pieces a day.
Yeah.
So I just don't, because some people, I think they overdo fruit.
Absolutely. People can definitely overdo fruit. But 2 servings a day, even for somebody who has diabetes, and it should be, if you have diabetes, low sugar fruits, and specifically it should be dark berries because dark berries actually have phytochemicals in them, proanthocyanidins, that helps the pancreas work better. So if your pancreas is not releasing insulin properly, if it can it's no longer sensitive to blood sugar anymore, which is what happens in diabetes, or it can no longer produce insulin, which is what happens when people actually have to take insulin. The nutrients that are in blueberries and blackberries and cherries, pomegranates, raspberries, strawberries are, they're more polluted, so you have to be careful with strawberries. But these fruits actually help your body regulate blood sugar. So again, not about drinking the juice, but about eating the fruit.
Yeah, when you drink the juice, it's just, you might as well stick an IV in your arm. And you know what I mean? And just mainline.
If it's fresh squeezed or something, then that is a different story. But if you're buying like pasteurized juice that's been heated, there's really the vitamin C is already gone. It might be already like added back or fortified. Really not.
But I'll never forget. This was 20 years ago when I was living in San Diego. I went to Trader Joe's and I bought an organic carrot juice. And it wasn't a big thing, but I drank the whole thing down very quickly and I almost fainted. I got reactive hypoglycemia. It was too much. It was just too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that can happen with even fresh juices like beet juice. I absolutely think beets are amazing. Beets are an amazing food. There's only 60 calories per cup of beets. They in no way have too much sugar for somebody with diabetes. But then if you're talking beet juice, yes, you probably, maybe you can drink an ounce of it or something.
You say, I want to make sure we get through some of these that we haven't even touched on. You say, remember fatty fishes and other sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Awesome for brain health.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the better quality fish you can get, the better. If it's wild caught, obviously, then it's been eating fish. And so it has a higher levels of omega-3. Farmed salmon, not only is it getting antibiotics, but it's also being fed food pellets, which are starchy. So they just don't have the content of omega-3s that, a wild one would. So we do have to consider the quality of our food, but smaller fishes have less mercury contamination and still high amounts of omega-3s, so primarily anchovies or sardines, herring, wild salmon if you can get it, mackerel but not kingfish, halibut, albacore tuna, also...
Wait, albacore tuna is cool?
Yeah, albacore tuna. Tuna will be contaminated with mercury, so you want to eat it less, but the albacore is the gray part, that was the high fat.
And talk about how good fats heal the brain. Because, again, I'm no lie. If I wanted to give myself depression within 1 week, I could just take all the fat. I could or even eat just a low-fat diet. What people recommend as a low-fat diet, it would kill me.
Yeah, it's really, really important to have good quality fats in your diet. And we're talking egg yolks. Egg yolks are where most of the nutrients are. So many people are eating egg white omelets and things. Yeah. And, of course, you want to be... Cholesterol is another show, but don't fall into the cholesterol myth. But, egg yolks are where all the nutrition is, where the beta carotene are, is where the carotenoids are, good for your eye, good for your brain. We also need cholesterol in order to create hormones. And this is another thing, especially as we're aging, in order to maintain our mojo, which also is important for our mental health and well-being, especially as we're aging, right? That we can produce testosterone, that we can produce enough estrogen, that we actually have a sex drive and that our body works. So that's another kind of side area, but it's important to know that we need to eat fat in order so that we can create our hormones and so that we can protect and heal our brain. So as I mentioned before, our brain's made up of this soft, supple, fatty acid tissue, similar to fish oil, and that's why we need to eat as many good quality fats as possible. So the fish, and then also the nuts and seeds. Walnuts look like a brain. Pecans, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, eggs, coconut oil have the medium chain triglycerides, excellent for ketogenic diet, as well as just, you don't have to be following a ketogenic diet in order to be including good quality high fat in your diet.
And also, if you eat enough dietary fat, you are never hungry. Are you? Yeah. I'm never hungry.
Yeah, it's slow burning fuel, maintains energy, slows down your digestion so that your body's always releasing blood sugar slowly, and excellent for lowering blood sugar and insulin.
Say a word about probiotics. You say probiotics take precedent because, again,
yes.
we didn't, I don't feel like we used to know, because I don't think people always understood that the health of your gut relates to your mental health. And
no, I mean, God bless Louis Pasteur and penicillin and everything, right? But it really ruined the digestive tract for 50 years until we started realizing that, wow, we cannot be sterile. We cannot just consume everything antibiotic and sterile and expect that we're going to be healthy. We have microorganisms that live in our digestive tract. Not only do they digest our food and help us absorb our nutrients, but they also help us produce the serotonin because it's in the same place, support our immune system. So we need to come into contact with germs, and we need to either take probiotics or we need to be eating foods that have live cultures. And yes, that can be yogurt, but yes, it can be sauerkraut that's found in the fridge. Yeah. Olives, pickles, always found in the fridge because there needs to be living bacteria. Unfiltered apple cider vinegar. These are ways to get, and so many traditional cultures. Go back to your culture. Ask your grandmother, if you can, or your mother, what they prepared as pickles or condiments or preserves, homemade, and then that's the best and the cheapest way to get it.
And do you recommend, because I also take probiotics, do you recommend that to your patients?
Yeah, I do, of course. Yeah, especially if people have been on bouts of antibiotics. It's very difficult to proliferate everything back. And you want a variety of strains as well. You don't just want a single strain. You don't have to take them all at once, but you do want more strains, the better.
And do you have a recommendation for people, like if they go out to buy a probiotic, anything specific to look for?
So you want a combination of lactobacillus species and bifido species, because lactobacillus are for the small intestine, bifido are for the large intestine. And then if you have yeast or candida, then you want a streptothermus strain. But lactobacillus reuteri, lactobacillus rhamnosus, acidophilus GG. So these are some good strains.
And also prebiotics. Prebiotics, talk about how the prebiotics feed the probiotics.
Yeah, so prebiotics is our inulin and soluble fiber. So you can get this from your diet if you're eating enough vegetables. But they do tend to add FOS, it's called fructooligosaccharides, into the probiotic so that the probiotic is also feeding. It will also feed bad bacteria. So depending on, if somebody has an overgrowth of bad bacteria, SIBO or candida, then prebiotics are not great. And sometimes I actually recommend that their probiotics don't have prebiotics in them.
I meant in the diet, prebiotics in the form of veggies. That's cool.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So artichokes and celery and bananas, pectins, anything with like that slippery feeling that sliminess is on oats, flax seeds. That's all prebiotic.
You also say that for the gut health, for the microbiome, avoid foods with white vinegar.
Yeah. So as opposed to distilled products like alcohol and white vinegar and even those pickles and condiments and olives that are on the shelf, those are just going to convert to sugar in the body. And so whereas the fermented foods that you've made at home or that are in the fridge section actually have the good bacteria in them.
Okay. Avoid foods with sugar added, because that just messes up.
That just causes more up and down. So you get the bipolar activity in the brain. So you're getting, the whole stress system is causing you to increase your stressor, or you're getting more anxiety, and then you're going to get depressed later on.
But also yeast, fungus, bad bacteria, they feed on sugar.
Yes,
as do cancer cells. I mean, just as an FYI.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's really our goal to reduce sugar. I mean, we really want to have 25 grams of sugar or less in our daily diet. So it's a good idea place to start. Add them up and see how many, read your packages. If you're adding 1 teaspoon of sugar to anything, then that's going to be 5 grams. So that's going to be your day's max.
You know what?
25.
I don't even count them because I limit things. Like I'll say, like tonight for dinner, I'm going to have beets.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had a couple kiwis earlier in the day. So like, that's my sugar for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I had beets and I had some kiwis. Like that's how I don't count things. I just kind of look. I always look at in a 24-hour, I look at my life in a 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I kind of measure things.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
Totally depends on where somebody is in their diet. If you're eating processed food, you're eating a lot of packaged foods, then definitely, count up the amount of sugar calories on those boxes because you can. If you're eating a whole foods diet, then you actually cannot count sugar calories. Because there's no labels on the containers. So
you also say avoid foods with sweeteners. What kind of sweeteners are you referring to?
So aspartame.
Oh God. Yeah.
So sweet and low, they mess up the bacteria. They mess up. So it's not just about not adding sugar to your coffee and then adding, something that's going to be a carcinogenic, that's going to break up the permeability of your gut. So that's also going to disrupt again, it all comes back to where the serotonin is made in your digestive tract. So we want a healthy digestive tract with regular smooth bowel movements, daily occurrences. Very little constipation or diarrhea, very little gas and bloating. We want it smooth transition. This is the goal, right? Your bowel movement should go from your wrist to your elbow with the sigmoid curve. That's the goal.
Really?
Yeah.
How many? Just on that topic, I believe you should, for at least as many times as you eat, you should have a bowel movement. Do you not agree with that?
I mean, that's what babies do, and so we definitely want to defecate 1 to 3 times per day.
Okay.
And you can measure your transit time by eating beets or corn and seeing when it comes out. So from the time you ate it to the time it comes out, and you can see if you're constipated or not. It should be 12 to 24 hours. If it's more than 24 hours, then you're constipated because then the food that you ate, 2 days ago is only coming out. Whereas if it comes out under 12 hours, then you're not absorbing all your nutrients from your food. The transit time's too fast.
Okay. But again,
but you do want to have a bowel movement every day. Skipping a day, it might be normal for you, but it's not normal.
But it's okay if you have them for as many times as you eat?
As long as it's well-formed and not loose.
Okay.
If you eat more fat, you'll definitely have more bowel movements.
Yeah. Okay. It's time for my Tara Marie's tip. This has been fascinating. So I want to chime in.
So fast.
I know, it always goes fast. I just want to chime in. Use me as a cautionary tale. Seriously, like I feel like on this show, I'm trying to tell people the mistakes I've made, so maybe they won't make them. Like don't, because I really messed up my health, like really badly. I corroborate everything we've said today. I've made every nutritional mistake that a person can make, and I suffered very, very dire consequences for what I did. I created a lot of health problems that I've had to work to correct. And it is so much easier to stay healthy than it is to fix something after you have a problem. It's really a lot easier. It's cheaper and it's less stressful to just stay healthy. Again, when I was growing up, the focus that I was taught, I was born in 1965. When I was growing up in the 70s, I was taught just worry about calories. I was never taught about nutritional content. In college, I lived on things out of the vending machine, sugar, beer, all the things that are processed and hard on the system. That was what I lived on. I acted like all that mattered was calories. And as long as I didn't get fat, that was the big focus when I was growing up. Just don't get fat. So if you count the calories, it doesn't matter what you're eating. I didn't pay attention to what I was eating. I had bad skin, bad mood. I had low immunity. I struggled with depression and anxiety. I created problems with gut issues. I had a thyroid issue. I didn't make the correlation between what I was eating and blood sugar fluctuations and brain chemistry and how I felt mentally and emotionally. My advice is to do just what Dr. Millie said, to start to really be in the moment, pay attention, make the connection, because everything you eat and drink has almost an immediate effect on how you feel and how you think and how you act. Back in those days, again, I didn't make the connection between what I was doing to myself and how I was actually feeling. Now I eat as though every bite of food, every sip of drink, everything I put in my body is either going to systematically build my health or systematically take it down, destroy it. And with this awareness, I've decided to choose health, and that's become my priority. Rather than having a party in my mouth, I decided to just feel well, just feeling good every day, feeling well. So I can honestly say that I'm at a stage in life, I'm 53, I feel better today, literally at 53, than I did when I was 23, when I was an international flight attendant and I was living on trash that we could get on the airplane and stuff like that. I look better, I feel better, I have better energy. And it's been 30 years later. So just, again, think of my life as a cautionary tale. And it's never too late. If you feel like you've gone too far and you're never going to regain your health, that's not true. You can always regain your health. It's never too late.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I want to thank Dr. Millie Lytle. Where's my thing? I want to thank Dr. Millie Lytle. If you're hearing this episode as a podcast and you want to watch the show, because we're doing it on video too, go to youtube.com/Tamri Live. Look for the video entitled The Food for Mood Diet with guest Dr. Millie Lytle. You can also access my YouTube channel right on my website, tamri.com. There are links right to my social media. I would like to thank Dr. Millie Lytle. And you guys, she's very generous. She has a gift. First of all, for more information generally about her and her work and her Nat Med coach, which she just began recently, right?
A couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just now hearing about it. Visit www.natmedcoach.com. natmedcoach.com. Dr. Millie has a gift for all Tamri Live listeners. And I realize that this is a podcast, so people are going to be hearing it at different times, but she's going to keep this gift going. She wants to offer you what Nat Med Coach offers, a virtual health club. It's a weekly online group coaching program that allows members to be coached on health topics that affect a lot of people today. And she has a team of naturopathic doctors, holistic health coaches, and functional medicine practitioners. They take turn coaching small groups over Zoom in weekly sessions. Today you just did one about
cancer and diet.
Mm-hmm. The replays are available if you're not able to attend the live event. And past topics she's done: heart disease myths and truths, de-stressing with aromatherapy, natural thyroid health, today cancer and diet, eating for your body type, subjects like that. For Tamri Live listeners, we're invited to try it out for 1 month entirely free. And if you don't want to participate after the month, you just cancel. So it's worth giving it a try. So check out this link. It's natmedcoach.com/health-club-Tara. I'm going to say that again. natmedcoach.com/health-club-Tara. You go there and they'll get the free month, right?
Yep, absolutely. All the instructions are there. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I hope I see you a lot.
Oh, yeah. My listeners are great. And they take people up on stuff. You guys, please rate and review Tamri Live on iTunes. And be sure to subscribe to Tamri Live so you never miss an episode. You can subscribe using iTunes or whichever podcast app you use. And you can do it on my website, tamri.com. That's TARAMARIE.com. There, you'll find all past episodes of Tamri Live. They're all posted on tamri.com. Be sure to check out the one I did with Dr. Millie Lytle in July of 2017. Stress, how stress affects hormones. Mm-hmm. That was a great topic. Also, you guys, when you're on my website, sign up for my mailing list. You'll get my newsletters. I send out Tamri's tips with about, fitness, nutrition, motivation, and things. But also, I send out information about the show so you can keep up with what's going on the show that way. Connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at Tamri Live and on Twitter at Tamri_live. Make better choices today than you did yesterday, and you will always be moving in the right direction. Peace out. God bless you. And thank you, Dr. Millie.